Will Butler, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Martin.
It's really my pleasure. What had me really want to have you on the show is that you and the organization you represent is all about, I think, the attitude that we all need to have with what we're dealing with. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got your superpowers?
My name's Will, and I work for a company that makes a free mobile app called Be My Eyes. I'm actually wearing my Be My Eyes t-shirt today. I don't know if anyone can see it, but Be My Eyes is pretty simple. It's basically just an app that connects people with sight with people who need it. Super simple concept. We've been around for just over 5 years now, and we have a volunteer community of about 3.7 million volunteers scattered around the world in almost every country and language, providing on-demand visual interpretation for anyone who needs a pair of sharp eyes through the video chat function of the app.
So how does that work in, like day to day? If you're someone that you're in a situation you need help, what do you do?
Let me think of an example. So a lot of it is just daily tasks, or many people who have low vision or have some type of visual impairment, they get into their daily routines and they find the things that work for them. But as soon as you get out of your routine, or there's some product or some experience that you have to go through that has an accessibility barrier, that has some sort of, because of the way it's designed or because of the way it's presented, you can't access it as a visually impaired person. And so the app is designed to bridge the gap. And if someone hands you something written on a piece of paper, and later on you're expected to be able to read it, and you can't see well enough to read it, what do? There's some kind of AI technology that's supposed to be able to read printed things, but it's not quite there yet. Sometimes you just need a human. So the most popular use cases are everything from reading labels on products, food items, that sort of thing, down to helping select, clothing that is the right color, or troubleshoot like LED screens that don't have any audio feedback. Really, kind of the list goes on and on and on. And people are always finding creative uses for it in countries all around the world, and coming up with new ways to use the app.
Okay, so you're in the store, you want to see this label, then you enable the app and you say, can someone help me read this? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, you can do it from anywhere. It works over the cellular network. So you don't have to have a Wi-Fi connection. You can call from a store. Maybe you're shopping for, you're walking around Macy's or something, and you can't find the sales rep to help you read the tiny little print on the price tag. You just pull out Be My Eyes and press the big blue button, and in about 10 seconds, you've got someone on there looking at the price tag for you, and they can tell you exactly what it says. And that's it. You just say, thanks, I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye. But except you won't talk to them soon, because it's a random anonymous person who you'll probably never talk to again.
So, well, unless you've got some people who do it over and over again, right?
It's true, but you'd probably have to make about 3.7 million calls to get the same volunteer a second time.
I think it's worth it. Just keep pushing the button.
Yeah, no one's done it yet, but we're one day maybe.
Okay, so if you're on the volunteer side, basically you check in and you say, I'm ready to help, and then you just fulfill request after request until you're done?
You don't even need to check in. So the algorithm is set up so that you sign up, you tell them what language you speak, and your IP address will tell us what time zone you're in. And based on those two factors, basically, we decide when to ping you. And so occasionally your phone will ring or get a push notification that says, visually impaired person seeking assistance. And if you're available, you answer it. And if you're not, you don't have to answer it. It's kind of like being an Uber driver, except for eyes. Like, if you don't get it, someone else will answer it in a matter of seconds.
Okay.
In fact, that's the only complaint we have from people about the app, is that they don't get enough calls, or they don't get to the phone fast enough to answer, because there's so many other eager volunteers.
Okay, well that's
trying
good.
to get the
good,
call.
right?
It's a good problem to have. for sure.
Okay, so you don't do a shift. You basically you're on, and if you get a request, you get a request, and if you don't, go about your
Yeah,
day. So
there's a
that's
little bit of a serendipity to it, and that's, I think, one of the things people find exciting about it.
wow. So whose idea was the app? How did it get started?
The original idea for the app was a gentleman in Denmark named Hans Jørn Viberg, and Hans is visually impaired himself. He's legally blind, has an eye condition, and as his vision was starting to sort of progressively change, and he was struggling more and more to read labels and whatnot, he started FaceTiming his friends and family, and he was like, "This is really cool, but my friends and family are going to get pretty tired of me FaceTiming them all the time pretty soon." So he said, what if I could just call a volunteer, a stranger, like the people on the street who are constantly trying to help me in public when I don't really need help? But what if I could call those people when I actually needed help? And so he thought up the idea for a global network that relies on video chat for sight assistance. And that's where it was born. Took a couple of years to get it quite right, but we finally released the app in January of 2015 with a lot of anxiety. We were like, is this going to work? What if all these blind people sign up to get help and nobody signs up to help them? But the opposite was the case. I mean, overnight we had 10,000 volunteers serving 1,000 users. And it was like, this is an amazing ratio. Let's keep this going. And it picked up a lot of organic press on its own, and just sort of was an idea that resonated with people. It really kind of goes to show you that if you have an idea that is deeply resonant with human nature, it will sort of take on legs of its own, not require a marketing engine, big money marketing engine in order to get the word out.
Oh, so you're not making your money off the t-shirts.
No, no, we've only printed about 100 of these.
All right. So how did
Limited
you get
edition.
involved? Yeah. How did you get involved?
I was working at the Lighthouse for the Blind and Visually Impaired in San Francisco as their communications director back in 2015 when these Danish guys showed up on our doorstep looking for money. They had just launched the app, and they weren't, they were looking for support more than anything. The founder's blind, but the CEO and other operational folks in the organization aren't. So they didn't know the community. They were like, the only blind guy we know is our founder. So they basically said, what can we do to sort of get to know the community better serve the community? And so Lighthouse for the Blind in San Francisco chipped in with investment and partnership, and gave Be My Eyes office space. And I was the communications director for the Lighthouse at the time, so became very close with the crew and kind of became a sort of blindness advisor to them. I'm legally blind myself, and really kind of just like helped them along the way for a few years. And then when I left Lighthouse at the beginning of 2019, the Be My Eyes crew invited me to join Be My Eyes, and I was like, I can't. It was a hard opportunity to pass up.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I think what a lot of people look for is something that they can do that they feel good about all day long. And that sounds like this for you,
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, if anything, I have a problem of I work a little too much because I enjoy it too much, and I wear myself out sometimes.
Yeah. Well, your family, that's a problem for your family more than anything else, right?
Yeah, well, luckily I live on my own right now, so
Oh, yeah.
it's just a me problem.
All right.
It's just a me being tired problem. That's
I
all
get
right
that.
though.
So what is it like living alone during quarantine?
I love it, to tell you the truth. It has its down moments. I I just found out that a friend, an acquaintance, passed away due to the COVID virus, and like that was the first time where I really felt the vacuum of living alone. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no one around to talk to, and I could call some of our mutual friends, but it doesn't feel right to call them just to mourn. You
Yeah.
know, previously I've been having all these phone calls that are social and that are basically intended to cheer each other up. but it didn't feel right to call someone just to mourn at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the first time I was like, wow, like this is a little rough. But up until that point, I have to say, like, I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm sort of an extroverted person, and so I think a lot of my friends expected I was going to be miserable and totally depressed this whole time. But I've just really been enjoying the peace and quiet, the ability to like focus on things that matter to me and not be pulled in a million different directions by a feeling of like social obligation over here or familial obligation over here or work obligation here, networking with this person, going to this thing because it's supposed to be a cool thing to go to. Just want, you know what I mean? Like there's so many things that stack up on us in life and they've all just been cleared away. So I have enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, you're one of the only people I've talked to that are saying that, but I'm glad to hear that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I guess,
I wonder if people don't say that because they feel guilty.
yeah. I mean, it's going a lot better than I thought it would. But the thing that's just tough for me is I have a habit of swimming 5 times or more a week, and I haven't been
Wow.
swimming, for quite a while. And so
Mm,
I'm walking as my exercise, but walking just doesn't hit it. I can't run, for it's just it doesn't work for me as an exercise.
yeah.
And so, being in the gym, I mean, I've got some light weights and stuff, but it's not it the swimming is just incredible. So for
Hmm.
me, it's like my
Hmm.
moment of zen. I don't, the whole thing. So that's
Right,
probably
right.
been the toughest part of it for me.
Well,
Um,
you sort of are mourning a loss then. Something really important to you has been taken away from you because of this, you know?
yeah, yep. And
Mm,
well, if you want to talk about mourning a loss, there's no hockey, so that's even more
yeah.
difficult. But when
Dude,
yeah,
I can't, I have to pinch myself sometimes to remind myself that there are no sports right now. It's
but
very bizarre.
when you talk about people that have died and people that are sick, I kind of feel like a jerk for feeling bad about it. But the reality is, it's like we're used to what we're used to, and that's there's certain things that really you get a
Yeah.
lot of joy out of.
Whether it's a person or a hobby you have. I mean, like, I'm not trying to hold them up as the same thing, but like, we all have things in our life that are familiar to us and make us feel comfortable and make us feel happy, make us feel at home. For some of us, it's people, and for some of us, it's aspects of our routine that keep us sane, keep us level-headed, that keep us from literally losing our minds. Like, so I also don't have any interest in taking away from the loss of people who have lost important hobbies, important relationships, important rituals, whatever that might be, spiritual, a church ritual, those are like real losses in people's lives. The ability to not go to church, that's a real loss
Yeah,
for a lot of people.
yeah. I think there's one thing that's understated is the cognitive load on us for staying indoors. Like, we understand intellectually that there are these things called viruses, and that if you live the way we live, we really believe that this is a dangerous thing for us. But one part of my lizard brain, why am I putting on this mask? Why am I putting on gloves? Why am I, like, they're just people. It's all okay. Everything that around my body is telling me this is okay. There's no
Right.
danger in this situation. And so to stay indoors, to keep doing what we're doing, it's a cognitive load. It's a stress. I feel it.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things about our fearless leader, if you don't mind me getting a little political, is that he can't handle that cognitive load. He's all lizard brain. And for all of his charisma and kind of aggressive approach to politics, he's a living, breathing example of how hard it is to understand the abstraction of a virus that can completely take over the world. He just doesn't seem to understand it.
So I think the thing that, part of the reason that I did this is that it can be really frustrating, wherever you live. If you're with such a divided country, the chances are you either don't like our president, or you don't like the governor, or you don't like the mayor, or you don't like something. I know from from my time when I was a leader in corporate America, or in community events, it's really hard to have patience with our leaders, and we have probably good reasons for not liking whoever our leader is. But one of the things that I think I'm just trying to give them, like, I'm trying to give them, be as generous as I possibly can to all our leaders. I could think of some of the things that happened. Like, I got really annoyed when they closed the beaches. For me, that walking on the beach was the refuge, and it didn't make sense to me. And like, in a quick moment, I was pretty angry at the leaders when that happened. But to
Mm-hmm.
realize that you're not in their position, and you're not, so I'm trying my best. I know this may sound Pollyanna, but I'm trying my best to just give all of our leaders the benefit of the doubt. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I won't vote to change them when the election comes around. But what
Yeah,
I'm really looking for is, what can we do to, I think a lot of the solutions are going to come from us. It's not going to come from the political leadership. So I'm trying to figure out, let's have conversation.
totally.
What can we do that's
Well,
going to make a difference?
well, they're only human, right? Like, the whole reason I brought up our leaders, because like they just reflect the way we act, I mean, they're humans just like us, and I think you could point to any one of our political leaders on any side of the aisle and find the same faults that you and I have, and we're just kind of deciding which ones to indulge and which ones to sweep under the rug.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good point too, because like, you know, being in when I'm here with my girlfriend, and we're trying to, just be really good to each other. And there's times where you just have to be like, you got to give the other person the grace of their space, and they're dealing with their thing too. And I'm really lucky. I mean, my girlfriend's better to me than I certainly deserve. But just in a way, you're very lucky being by yourself, right? Not having to run into somebody else who just, like that. It's something. So I could just imagine how many families, where the brothers and sisters hate each other, or the parents were about to file for divorce and they're in lockdown. Just
Well,
those
yeah.
situations, right?
And I can't remember if I was hearing this on your podcast or another podcast, but if you talk to folks who work in, you know, trauma related intake positions,
Yep,
they'll all tell you that domestic violence and child abuse has spiked,
for sure.
and that's really real. I mean, some people are not safer at home, and I think it's going to be a little bit more time before we hear some of the horror stories coming out. But talk about a big revelation of privilege, right?
Yeah.
I feel privileged and lucky every single day. And I'm a blind guy. You know what I mean? Like, living alone, I'm a lonely blind guy over here. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people wouldn't expect that, but that's what it is.
Well, we all have our struggles, right? But that, I mean, that's what I'm looking for, is how, if you can look at your situation and go, I'm really lucky. So maybe someone else might look at you and go, wow, if he looks at himself as lucky, maybe I should look to see where I'm lucky, right? I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all do that thing of like comparing ourselves, right?
For
And
sure.
we all know it's not really it's not really the surest path to a healthy self-esteem, because there's always going to be somebody who's better than you, always going to be somebody who's worse than you. But I think that there is something to the idea of understanding that just because you're part of a marginalized group, or part of a minority, or part of a disadvantaged group, doesn't necessarily mean that you're not also lucky or privileged or set up in a position to be actually quite content.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times these days people point to their identity, or the part of them that is the part they write down on the census form, and hide behind that as an excuse for why they should be considered, you know, uh, oppressed or something like that. I don't. I consider myself privileged. I don't consider myself oppressed.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about like what are your plans for Be My Eyes? What it seems like it's more successful than the founders possibly imagined it would be to begin with. But where do you want to take where do you want to take it now? What now?
Yeah, well, the success of it, kind of demands that we keep it running. We've basically created a public utility of like free site for anyone in the world 24/7, which is like no big deal. You know what I mean? Like, um, just figure out how to fund that whole, uh,
How are you funded?
well, we decided early on we didn't want to be a charity.
Right.
We didn't want to walk around with the tin cup out for the rest of our existence. We wanted to build a sustainable business model, but that doesn't mean that we were able to figure it out immediately. We took us a few years, and finally we realized that actually there's such an emerging consciousness in corporate leadership and in sort of many different industries about inclusion and accessibility that companies actually are looking for opportunities to support historically disadvantaged communities. And so we come to companies and we say, you can support the blind community the exact way that all these millions of volunteers are, but you can support them at the brand level and provide this support any number of ways, whether it's through corporate volunteering or licensing our support software to install in your call centers, or the software that we build that allows you to better support your visually impaired employees, kind of like this whole suite of software and community-based like tools that we can license to companies so that they can really kind of roll up their sleeves and start supporting the 2 billion people in the world who have a vision impairment.
Yeah. Well, so how many of those people are you serving, like per year?
Oh, tiny fraction. I mean, it, to give you, that's really the dream with Be My Eyes, is like we've reached millions of volunteers. We're one of the biggest volunteer organizations in the world, certainly the biggest micro volunteering platform. But in terms of and we're also, don't get me wrong, we're the biggest global blind community, right? We're the biggest community of blind and visually impaired people worldwide. 200, more than 200,000 people use it in 200 different languages. But that's still not even like a fraction of a percent of the total vision impaired community.
Yeah.
And somehow in 5 years, we've become the biggest global blind community just by kind of putting out an idea that resonates with people, putting out a free service. But we still have 99.9% of the community to go. I mean,
Yeah.
to really find out about this.
So, well, like, what percentage of the U.S. and I don't know if you know these numbers off by heart, but what percentage of the U.S. population that could use your services is using it?
I wouldn't know offhand, but a small percent, right? And
Is it because
this
they
is,
don't know about you, or is it because?
I mean, folks who are severely visually impaired are pretty disconnected and largely rely on friends and family to do a lot of things for them. The unemployment rate is over 70% now. And so these people don't have a lot of high-end technology that they're inundated with. Increasingly many of them do have smartphones, which is great, but because you can't store health information and market against health information for HIPAA reasons, like you don't have the ability to just target blind visually impaired people based on a health condition. So they're hard to find through traditional marketing channels. Many of them are older adults with failing vision, and those people don't want to be grouped in as a blind person or a visually impaired person. They just are just an unlucky sighted person or someone having a tough time or whatever it is.
Right.
So
But
those
like
people, those people.
my parents, well, my dad before he died, he definitely had situations where I can't read this label. Hell, I
Right,
have that now. I'm 56, right? There are
exactly.
times I look at that and I go, "Hey, can you read, what's the ingredients on this thing?" So,
Absolutely.
yeah, but
Yeah. So one of the things we're doing is trying to make the brand more inclusive
yeah.
and not to just say like, oh, this is like a big inspirational app where you get to help the poor blind people. But to say, no, this is an app for everyone. If you could see, lend your eyes. If you need help seeing,
That's
use it.
cool. Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
and not make people label themselves as blind simply because they want to use that.
Well, just before now, like it didn't occur to me, but just right this moment, I'm like, oh wow, I could be one. I don't consider myself right visual impaired, but like
Right.
if I'm just trying to look like, okay, if I got a little, like I got these headphones and I'm like, there's no way you can't get this. There's no way I could read this, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
yeah, so totally. It's like you get older, you need help. You get a
Yeah.
situation, you need help.
Absolutely.
But like,
Yeah.
what made you think of it is one of the people I interviewed. I haven't released it yet. I'm in the middle of editing it. My friend Dis Rajapandist. He's the guy that did my headshots for the website and stuff that I had done. And just amazing photographer, love him, terrific. And then I tell people he's legally blind. People go, "Oh, I can't believe that." But
Mhm.
he's not my photographer because he's legally blind. He's my photographer because he makes me look amazing. But I just interview him, talk about his story, the whole deal, and it occurs to me I'm going to call him and go, "Do you know about this?" He may not know about this, right? But this could be a situation where that could be helpful to him in certain,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I think also people have a little bit of an aversion to calling a stranger, to have them help them with something in their personal life. But I think that that's largely just a branding thing. I think that like people share all sorts of personal information with strangers all day long on Instagram and Facebook and what have you, right?
Yeah,
It's all just sort of a matter of how you frame it and how people think of it.
yeah. Well, but still, let me think about it. 10 years ago, did you like the idea of, hey, I'm just going to some random stranger's car because you got an app and
Exactly. Yeah. People get in cars with strangers all day long now.
you're going to stay in somebody's bedroom, somebody's house, somebody's
Right.
bedroom? Are you kidding me?
Right. Using someone's eyes is nothing, right? Like using someone's eyes is one of the safest things you could do.
I mean, it's one thing. It's like, okay, I want you to read this contract, this confidential contract. Okay, maybe you
Right.
would want to do that. But hey, I want to know, which of these two brands of toothpaste, what's in this? I'm allergic to this ingredient. Is there any of this in there? Or I'm vegan and I don't want any butter.
Yeah, and you don't have to tell them the information about you in order for them to make the decision for you. You're just asking them to be your eyes, not your brain, not your sense of critical, reasoning or anything like that. You're just asking them to be your eyes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So let me get a little bit into the will side of this. What is it that makes you good at this?
Mm. Well, that assumes a lot. That assumes that I'm good
Okay,
at
are you
this.
good at this?
I'm learning as I go, I think. I
Oh, yeah.
don't think if you talked to me a year and a half ago, I would have considered myself like a marketing professional, right? But that's sort of like largely the world I've been living in for the last year.
Well,
Prior
you're
to
you're
that,
you're a VP of community for one of the largest communities ever, right? So you got to be doing something right. They might have picked you for a good reason, right? I mean, you are devastatingly good looking, so that could be it too. And you got a good voice, so
yeah, tell a blind guy he's good looking. That is no good way to his heart. Uh, I think that I think that I once had like a professor in college say, if you don't feel like you're a little bit in over your head, you're probably not in the right role because you should always be learning and struggling to stay afloat, and because that means you're making the biggest gains, right?
yeah,
And so I try to keep myself in that position as much as possible. I try to start new projects as much as possible, and I've been doing that back when I was in nonprofit. Back when I was before that, I was working in journalism. Did never expected to be working in journalism. Before that, just in college, like always sort of pushing myself to try new things. And even if I didn't necessarily know exactly what they were all about.
yeah,
And you got to stay humble though if you're going to do that all the time. Like you can't come in assuming you know anything. You got to be willing to be taught and to learn from others. And know that every idea you have is not going to immediately take hold.
Okay. So on a day-to-day perspective, so I've got this framework I call win the day. A couple of years ago, I lost 100 pounds. And the way I
Wow.
did that, yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. So a lot of stuff went into that. My brother actually he was the one always cheering me on, going, "You can do this. I know you've got the discipline." And so first part of it is being clear about where you're going, and having, if you don't believe it, you got to have some cheerleaders to help believe in it. And then the other piece of it is I didn't lose 100 pounds in a day. It took me well over a year and a half. So it was, half a pound here, every week. If I lost weight this week from last week, then, I won my week. But what could I do on a particular day? Well, based upon the water and the exercise, your weight just fluctuates too much for you to tell just by your weight whether you won the day. But I would take a look and say, as long as I drank, I would drink half a gallon of water, and I would stop eating at a certain hour and do my intermittent fasting, and I had less than X number of carbs a day, and I wrote down everything I ate that day. So out of those 5 activities, if I did 3 of them, then I win the day. If I did less than 3, I
Mm,
lost the day. And generally, if I could win 5 days out of 7, then I was going in the right direction. So that's kind of the way I look at things.
mm,
So what is it you do from your perspective? What do you do to win the week and win the day?
that's a great, great question, and I'm probably not going to have a super satisfactory answer, but I think that the the lockdown has definitely caused me to get a little more structured, right? Because before the lockdown, possibilities were limitless. I could work from home, go see a friend, go to the grocery store, go to the plant nursery, go out to a bar at night. And so as a result, days were loose and like would flow, and I don't have, I'm single, and I'm, you know, like just kind of like not accountable. So it's just like just floating down the river of life, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
now it's like, well, if I don't go outside before the sun goes down, there are going to be some real consequences. I'm going to feel miserable. I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so like for me, I've had to like get stripped down to basics, and like winning the day now means like go outside and get some sun, prepare a meal that is reasonably healthy. I was ordering takeout food before. I could do a whole podcast episode talking to you about how it changed my cooking habits and eating habits during this period of time. And so just feeling like I ate well that day, super important, super, super important. Not waking, drinking in a moderate enough way to not feel like I'm expending my energy for the next day. Like these aren't super revolutionary, ambitious things, but I definitely have had to apply a bit of a rubric and bit of a framework to my life now that I'm like basically living within very strict parameters, right?
Well, I mean, you may think it's simplistic, but there's 3 things right there. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
time, drink in moderation. I think in there, you didn't say it, but in there is also get enough sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then go outside, have some sunshine. Basically go outside before the sun goes down. That's what I think you
Mm-hmm.
said. And eat
Mm-hmm.
at least one healthy meal. So
Mm-hmm.
if you ate 3 takeout meals, you didn't do that. You have one healthy meal,
Mm-hmm.
you won, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then do you have anything on the side of like what you want to accomplish for work? Do you get 1 or 2 things on your list that you need to accomplish every day?
Well, I'll tell you, keeping a podcast running really keeps you honest. You'll learn that you know this if you don't already. It's like
Yeah.
you basically build in deadlines for yourself, right? And from working in journalism, I understand the power of a deadline, even if it's a self-imposed deadline. It's just like you can just procrastinate forever and ever and ever if you don't have a deadline. And so I have days of the week that are like, if you don't release the podcast on Thursday, you've failed, you
Yeah.
know? if you don't release this podcast every other Tuesday, you have not won,
Right.
and so I keep myself pretty honest with those podcast deadlines. From like a business development, brand marketing perspective, we have campaigns and arcs of things that last a couple of weeks at a time, and it's always this juggling act to keep all of those things straight in your mind. But I think I'm an inbox zero kind of guy.
Yeah.
All my Danish colleagues took Monday off for Easter, and so I took the opportunity to wipe my inbox out. I had about 150 emails, unread emails hanging over my head, and finally got them wiped out on Monday. And that's the state I like to be in for sure. Inbox zero. And like if I wake up in the morning and I got 35 emails, in my inbox already because I got Europe sending me emails, I'm not really going to be like, feel like I've got the day under control until I've pretty much opened and addressed most of them.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, one more thing. A friend of mine once told me, like, just make your bed.
yeah. So do you make your bed
Like,
every day?
no.
Okay. Well, that's something
but
for you to grow on.
but it's an easy way. It's an easy growth area, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like, you just feel so much more sane with a made bed. Like there's something psychological about it that feels really deep. And so on the days where I'm feeling really good, my bed is made for sure.
That's awesome. I actually do have friends whose lives were changed when they started making their bed. So I know that it does.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. But what they found is making their bed every day. A lot of so that these are a couple of one of these guys is in the earlier 20s, and he said once he started making his bed every day, like one of the things that happened is like his girlfriend noticed. So she would be. It was just like he went to the bathroom one time, came back, and the bed was made. He's like, well, that's interesting, and like whatever it was, it's the little things. You do something, you take something on like that, it will make a difference.
I mean, I don't really believe in any of that, like, you know, The Secret or like karma or any of this stuff. But there is like a basic principle of like the energy you put out comes back to you.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as the mirror neurons that go into like, if someone smiles, you smile back, and then they smile, the smile gets bigger, you know, which is something that, but it goes all the way to like if you walk out the house with the made bed, you're going to act a tiny bit differently, just a tiny bit differently than you would act if you walk out of the house and it's a mess in there.
Yeah. And you come back and you're in a better mood, and yeah. So
So you're less tired, and yeah.
absolutely. So I know that you have a heart out, so I want to make sure to get you out. But before we do that, what is it you want to leave our audience with?
I want to leave them with the paradox of this whole situation we're in. I think you can choose to look at it two ways, and they're both correct. But it's sort of the term gestalt.
Yep.
It's like when you look at an ink blot and it kind of looks like a hand, but if you look at it the right way, it also kind of looks like a bunny rabbit. And if you train your mind, you can switch back and forth between looking at it as a duck or a bunny rabbit, depending on nothing except the way you decide to look at it. So the gestalt of this is, on one hand, it's like the absolute most kind of devastating, frightening pandemic you could imagine that will probably ever happen in our lifetimes.
Hopefully.
When you look at when you look at the 25,000 people who have died over the last couple of weeks, just in America alone, I mean, it's just like you shudder, right? I mean, that's way bigger numbers than any terrorist attack or anything that we've experienced. At the same time, the entire world has gotten together to work on a project that is totally unprecedented, and that is to anticipate through science the potential mortality that the pandemic could have if we let it go unfettered. And we've all gotten together as one world to say, let's save millions of people's lives. Let's do preventative health measures to save millions of people's lives so that we don't have another, Holocaust level, Black Plague level type of death rate. And we've foregone so much capitalistic gain. We've really taken an economic step back for the interest of just basic humanity. And I think you could argue that that's the greatest project we've ever embarked on as a planet, as a human race. Again, it's like desperate times call for desperate measures. Every dark cloud has a silver lining, whatever cliche you want to apply to it. But when you wake up in the morning, you get to decide, what mindset you're going to look at it from. And I say that as someone who's lost friends due to this pandemic and does really truly have very mixed feelings about whether I'm enjoying myself here or whether this is just sort of a big tragedy. And I don't know what the right answer is. I think there probably isn't a right answer, but we definitely have a choice about how we're going to look at it day to day.
What I'm hearing you say is we choose the right answer, and you could choose what is it, the duck or the
The
rabbit.
rabbit. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we're choosing to be better out of this. We're choosing that this is the learning and that this is the greatest project humanity's ever done. Huge cost, but let's make it worth it. That's what I'm hearing.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Will Butler, you have been a great guest. I really appreciate you taking the time and forward to doing this again sometime soon.
Absolutely. I'm loving the podcast and looking forward to listening to more of it.
All right, awesome.